which would be the reflection of our enthusiasm. We feel a sense of immense pride as we welcome our guest speaker for the day, Dr. Nilanjan Banik, Professor and Program Director, Mahindra University, India. Professor Banik works focus on the application of time series econometrics in issues relating to the international trade, market structure, and development economics. Besides, time series econometrics, his other area of work focuses on the rules, part of WTO, especially examining the non-tariff barriers aspect of GATT, WTO agreements. Prior to joining the graduate program in the Department of Economics, Utah State University, Professor Banik has worked as research officer with Rajiv Gandhi Foundation, New Delhi, and senior business analyst with DTA consultancy firm, New Delhi. He has publication in International Review of Economics and Finance, Review of Development Economics, Development Policy Review, Journal of World Trade, Asia Pacific Trade, and Investment Review, Asian Development Bank, Working Paper, Economics, and Political Weekly, Foreign Trade Review, etc. Now, I would like to call upon Dr. Manoj Sinha, Principal, Aryabat College, to share few words of wisdom with us.
Good morning to all of you. I'm apologetic that I could not reach your physical venue in time, but it's my prime duty to welcome Professor Banik this morning. Good morning to you, Professor Banik, and welcome to the platform of Aryabat College.
Thank you.
This is a relatively new addition to the Delhi University bouquet, and we have been functioning for some time as Aryabat College, but for a long time as also Ramlal Anand Evening College, where we were running our economics department and running it pretty well, I believe, because it was one of the reasons, its achievements were one of the reasons that we were given the status of an independent college later on. So our economic students have been very, very diligent, and we have a lot of good achievers also among our alumni. But presently, all these students involved in the mind over matter are very enthusiastic lot, and I'm sure they'll have a lot to learn from you, especially around the area of agricultural economics and the farmers' question that you are going to take up today. Thank you for being here. And also my congratulations to all the to Dr. N.M. Singh, Deepika, and all other colleagues who are involved with the matters of mind over matter, and the students who are doing so well and organizing this 3-day festival, where I'm sure there'll be a lot of takeaways for all of you. So my best wishes for these 3 days of interaction together today as we open up. And for now, have a very good interaction with Professor Banik of Mahindra University. Namaskar, good day to all of you.
Thank you, sir, for such enlightening words of yours. Now let's get into an insightful session. I request all the audience to keep their mics on mute, and you are free to write questions in the chat box. We'll be sharing a feedback form link in the chat box. Kindly fill that form. Now I request our guest speaker to throw some light on today's topic of why are Indian farmers poor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Deepika, for having invited me to deliver this talk. I hope I'm audible and you are able to see my screen, right? So today's talk is about the farmers, and what I'm going to do, as I see that there are so many students in the audience, what I'm going to do is to share some of my research result for some project that we did for the government of Rajasthan and government of Andhra Pradesh. The reason why you see Rajasthan priorities at the bottom of the PowerPoint presentation is because I actually presented these slides in front of the policymakers and the ministers for the government of Rajasthan. Now, because there are students, I'm trying to pitch it at a level which is going to make sense for them. Some of the statistics, some of the information that I'm going to share are already available in the published document, which I'm going to share with all the students if they want to have a look or a detailed look about the references that I'm talking about, and also the result that came out from our study. So it all started in the year 2018 when I was approached by Tata Trust in conjunction with Copenhagen Consensus, where they wanted to understand that what are the intervention on perspective of the government that will have maximum impact on the livelihood of farmers. So as I said, this talk is about the farmers and why this particular project was so important. Because as most of you know, even now as we talk, around 49% of the Indian population, they earns their livelihood from the agricultural sector. And what is more worrisome, as we keep on reading newspaper, that the rich are becoming richer and the poor are becoming poorer, what is more worrisome is the people who are engaged in the farming kind of activities. Most part of them who belongs to the category of small and marginal farmers, they are the ones who happens to live below poverty line. So Economist, that magazine, The Economist, they carried out one report where they, I think way back in 2019, where they were suggesting that India has around 260 million people living in poverty, and 80% of them live in the countryside, mostly engaged in agriculture and allied activities. So therefore, it is quite important on the perspective of government, both at the center as well as the various state governments, try to understand in what way intervention can happen so as to improve their livelihood. The other reason is, in India, if you see the productivity of our agricultural sector, it is quite low. And one of the reasons for that, some of the work that I did for UNSCAP, where basically what I found was, this is a World Bank data which is suggesting less than 30% of the land in India, cultivable land, that comes under irrigation. So that means a major part of the cultivable land, we have to depend upon rainfall or the weather god. Okay, and if you look into the median annual wage of farmer in India, it is around $290, which comes to around 22,000 Indian rupees per month, which is quite low, So when I went and met these people, both at the government and over at Tata Trust, they were trying to understand which one of the interventions, namely firm loan waivers, managing supply chain logistics in terms of building more cold storage units, e-mandis, and food processing units, which one of them would give maximum benefit to the farmers. So that's how the project got started. Now, as an economist, and I'm sure that Professor Deepika and others who are teaching you economists, you may have come across this concept of cost-benefit analysis. So in particular, whenever we do some intervention, there is some associated cost, because let's say I'm trying to build up a cold storage unit. For building that cold storage unit across any state in India, government has to spend money, right? And what are the benefit? The associated benefit are that some of the perishable items which otherwise goes wasted, that thing is not going to happen. So you actually get some benefit by storing those items. So this is in a very true or very simple way as how cost benefit analysis is done. Although you can actually float a course out of it, cost-benefit analysis or variety of intervention. So that's how it all got started, and I started looking at the data, and what I'm going to share with you, what I learned from this exercise. Now, first of all, and this is, I was visiting, so I am Indore, they have this integrated program, and I took a course on this particular cost-benefit analysis. So the first day I was at the class, I was asked this question, that who are the farmers? Because many times the perception is anyone who is working in the field can be qualified as farmers. But in fact, that is not the case. So those persons who are working on the field, we call them cultivators. So the farmers also include, in addition to the cultivators, agricultural laborers, or sharecroppers, or tenant farmers, all these people who are engaged with what we call allied activities. Now, what are these allied activities? You can be engaged in poultry or livestock rearing. You can engaged in beekeeping. You can be engaged in, let's say, gardening, fisheries, silviculture, vermiculture, agroforestry, even the tribal families who in the morning they go out to the forest looking for some, because the forest area is a public good, so they are allowed to go and collect their collectibles every day. So even that kind of activity will fall under agriculture and allied activities, and these people will be considered as farmers, provided their income from farming activities, I'm going to tell you the numbers, it is around 8,931 rupees per month, so that is by the latest estimate. So students, please do keep in mind that farmers are not necessarily the person who are working in the field alone. It also includes people engaged in agricultural related allied activities, which can be farming, dairy, fisheries, so on and so forth. Now, if you look at the census, as you know that we have this concept of thick census and thin census. Thick census are the one which happens over a period of every 10 years, And because this presentation was done or made sometime in early 2019, I have had chance to go over census, and the numbers were suggesting that there are 118.9 million cultivators across the country. And please understand this, typically a cultivator, we are assuming a family size of 4 to 5 people. So if you are talking with any farming family, you tend to see that on average, they are having 2 to 3 children, which makes around 5 people in the farming household. So if I multiply that 118 times 5 or 4, depending upon, on average, are getting this number 480 million people dependent on farming. So that 48% that you are seeing, what I started off by saying, is on the basis of this kind of assumption. Okay. And if I also include all these people, other people who are involved in dairies, forestry, fisheries, give and take, roughly, we are talking about 500 million people who are associated with farming and allied activities. So in that perspective, it is quite important because out of 1.3 billion population, you have almost 48% of the people are earning their livelihood from the agricultural and allied activities. And if we are not able to ensure that their farm income is rising in tandem with what is happening with rest of the economy, this is going to increase the income inequality, and income inequality is a bad thing. And we can have a detailed discussion on that sometime later. So that's why, so first of all, when I started pondering and wondering what are the factors which may have contributed the farmers not getting as much money as the government would have thought. And so what are the factors? So I kind of looked into various factors, and I'm going to share with you 8 such important factors. So the first thing which I tried to look into, that when it comes to the distribution of land, how equal or unequal the land distribution is when it comes to the farming activities. Then I looked about farming equipments, which includes all the mechanization of agriculture, because the underlying assumption is if you are able to mechanize your agriculture, the farm output is going to be more. So therefore, look into the access to farming equipment, including agricultural threshers, tractors, so on and so forth. Then also another important component is access to finance, because the farmers, they need this credit to buy all these farm-related inputs, also the farming equipment, and therefore access to finance is also important. Access to cold storage is also important because, as we know, the higher value item crops are usually the one which are perishable in nature, and therefore you should also be getting access or ability to store in cold storage so that your output does not get wasted. And this is particularly true for milk type product, where the waste, as per as the estimate suggests, it is as high as 40%. Then I also looked at what about access to transport, because if I'm producing something, I'll have to take it to the market. And the way I take it to the market is using transport. So access to transport is also important. Then access to market, because once I go to the market, how do I sell? Who do I sell it to? And do I have access to market? And then now the government has started to introduce e-mandi or e-market. And finally, what I looked at is, are the farmers, because you can have variety of interventions in the form of insurance product, financial product, but are the farmers are aware of this kind of product which are available for their help, So basically, also access to information or financial product is also is something that I looked at. So let's first look into this access to land. And this is what I found by looking at the data. As we are talking in 2022, maybe this will vary a little bit because I collected the data way back in 2018, but not much has changed then. So ballpark figure, you can hope that these are actually a realistic estimate. So what I found was 86% of the farmers are small and marginal farmers with less than 2 hectares of land holding size. So this translates around 6.5 bigha in case you are not familiar with hectares. And what is more important for you to understand, this land parcel is not contiguous, meaning that it is not a continuous parcel of land. Some land are here, some land are maybe you have to walk for 2 or 3 minutes across the field. In some instances, I happen to visit some of the farmland in Andhra Pradesh as well as in Rajasthan. What I found is in some cases, this particular gentleman is having land in different locality altogether, and that's how they are making up this 2 hectares. Now, what is the problem with this land parcel not being contiguous? It is not going to help you with mechanization of agriculture, something I'm going to talk later. But on average, if I look into the average land holding size in India, it is 1.15 hectares, which is pitifully small in comparison to what you find in case of China or for that matter, even in US or Netherlands or UK, And that also helped us to understand why there is so much difference in agricultural productivity. For the simple reason, when you have a small parcel of land, you just cannot go for mechanization of agriculture. And this data already I have stated that only 35% of the land is irrigated, which means that for some reason, if you have a bad rainfall year, And this is the work that I did for UNSCAP, where I found that the suicide rates in India goes up, And as Econ 101, as the starting point of economics, you should know that your income is directly proportional to your labor. So marginal productivity of labor goes down, your income goes down. And in this case, because we are talking or dealing with small parcel of land where mechanization is not available or possible, you find that the agricultural productivity is low, and therefore low agricultural productivity is leading to low income. What about access to farming equipment? Now, as I said, mechanization is not possible because if you ask any farmer, in fact, what we did, we went and asked farmers, what they will tell you that if I want to employ a tractor in any meaningful fashion, you need to have at least more than 5 hectares of land. Otherwise, you cannot employ a tractor or agricultural thresher in a meaningful way, which means we have to depend upon animal for farming, be it bullock or cow. You use them for farming, and therefore you don't have high productivity. Just think of the US farmer vis-a-vis Indian farmers. I keep on telling my students that the reason why the productivity is so high because it's totally mechanized in the US or in the developed countries. So it is quite obvious. Even within India, if you look into the distribution of big farmers, more than 80% of the big farmers are from 3 states, namely Punjab, Haryana, and Western UP. And if you go to those states, you will find, and I strongly suggest, I myself travel a lot, and I also strongly suggest to the student that if possible, just go out and see the countryside, So India is so diversified, so much to learn just by visiting the countryside. You'll see that Punjab is so different than, let's say, if I go to some small villages in Chhattisgarh or for that matter, in Bihar. I was in Jharkhand last month. I can see the how much poverty there is. So if I go by the latest estimate, and this is for the year 2018, National Bank for Agricultural and Rural Development suggests that average monthly farm household income. Please note, it's farm household income, which comprise of maybe 4 to 5 people, which is around 891 per month. So if you multiply it by 12 and divide it by 5, you get that figure of $290, which I just now mentioned in the previous slides. And what is more worrisome is only 0.6% are large farmers with more than 10 hectares of land holding site. And in fact, these are the large farmers which you can associate yourself with when you see all this demonstration were happening in the Delhi NCR region. It has nothing to do with the small and marginal farmers, just so you know. We can talk about that later. Then you have the access to finance. Now, access to finance means if you talk to any bank manager, he or she will tell you that there is something called agricultural loan. And this loan is given at a much cheaper rate of interest compared to other commercial loan. For instance, if you want to buy car, automobile, or any consumer durables, or for that house, you pay a much higher rate of interest in comparison what you have to pay for taking firm agricultural loan. But the worrisome factor again is, we just now spoke that 86% of the farmers in India are small and marginal farmers, but out of them, only 15% of them actually get access to formal loan. The question is why? Now, if you talk to some bank managers, they will say most of these farmers, in order to take loan, you have to give some collateral, and the land title deed for most of the farmers in India are not clear, So because of that, they cannot provide any collateral. Moreover, they don't file any income tax, So the typical the documents which are necessary for you to get loan, those kind of stuff are not available for the small farmers, and therefore You see only out of 86% of the small and marginal farmers, 15% of them are able to take formal public sector loan, And in our study, we have stated that the cost difference for loan rates between the formal and informal sectors can go as much high, and this is a conservative estimate, between 30 to 45%, depending upon which locality you are talking to and which group of farmers you're talking to. And at times when loans are taken, because this farming family are so poor, they don't have access to other type of financial product, let's say life insurance or health insurance. So God forbid if someone dies in the family or someone fall sick, or for that matter, there is a family event such as marriage, most of this loan which they take for farming activities, they actually use that thing. So it's again a vicious circle of poverty in that way. So most of the there are some studies in some district in UP which suggests that even in case of farm loan waiver, even if you are lucky enough to get the farm loan, you don't use that farm loan for agricultural activities. Instead, you use them for all these life cycle events such as marriage, health, etc., etc. Now, access to cold storage. Now, here also, when we did some survey, we found that if you were to, first of all, the geographical dispersion of cold storage and warehouses is highly unequal. Most part of the cold storage you'll find in Punjab, Haryana, Andhra Pradesh, and partly in UP. But in most other states, you don't get access to cold storage. And even if you get access to cold storage, the deal is you have to book 50,000 quintals before any farmer can get access to cold storage. So for the small and marginal farmers, this is out of question. So therefore, no access to cold storage. Now, why cold storage are important? As I said, if you want to grow some high-valued crops, for instance, fruit, vegetables, and milk, you need to have access to cold storage. Now, what we found was only 22% of marginal farmers and 23.61% of small farmers grow any high-value crops. The reason is quite simple, because they don't get access to cold storage. You don't have proper irrigation facility. For some reason, if your crop output fell or that get wasted, your entire money that you spend towards growing that go wasted. So therefore, the small and marginal farmers, they don't go ahead and start growing high-valued crop items. What about access to transport? And in fact, what we found is typically if you talk or look into the any truck that you come across, you will find that it has capability of 100 quintals, although we say around 80 to 90, but typically what happens is if your capability is 80, you just keep on loading items on your trucks. So on average, you can think that it's around 100 quintals. And the estimate suggests that agricultural yield is around, this is about the rice agricultural yield, it's around 2070 kg per hectare. So after harvest, for a small farmer with a land holding size of 1.15 hectares, it roughly translates to 2400 kg, which is 24 quintals. So therefore, for a particular farmer to book a truck by himself or herself is also not that worthysome, because you have to spend more money to book the trucks, to take your produce to the nearby mandi. Access to market, this is quite important. So let's say I'm a small farmer. So what are the options which are available for me? The first option is I go and sell my produce to the government agency like Food Corporation of India or let's say NABARD, or I take it to the government designated mandis. Now, if I were to go and sell it to the government designated mandis or this government procurement agencies, you need to grow the crops which are under APMC or the minimum support price, and there are 24 such crops in India which comes under minimum support price. Unfortunately, again, most of the time, if I'm talking about the government procurement agency, you talk to the farmers, they will tell you that most of the time procurement happens 2 or 3 months after the harvest, So if I'm growing some perishable items or I don't have space for storing those items, what I do? I have no other option but to sell it to the village level aggregator. In fact, as I said, that most of the large farmers are from the state of Punjab, Haryana, and you see that most of the items which comes under the MSP, minimum support price, for instance, rice and wheat, most of the procurement happen from these states. 70% of the rice procurement is done from Punjab, AP, Chhattisgarh, and UP, whereas 80% of the wheat procurement is done from Punjab, Haryana, and MP. And if you're a small farmers, I seldom get a chance to take it to the mandi. Why? Because mandis are the place where the MSP, you can hope to get the MSP, because there are government, the state government, APMC comes under the state purview. They send their officer, where in front of their officer you actually go and sell your produce. And there are close to 30,000 agricultural market. But again, simple statistics. There are 6.6 lakhs villages in India. So per capita availability of market is again minutely small. So if I want to sell it, I may not be having access to market because of there are 6.6 lakhs villages and there are only 30,000 agricultural market. E-Mandi, this is the initiative which got started in 2016-17. In 2018, what I found was there are 21 wholesale markets across 8 states in India. And these are the states. Telangana, they were having, I don't have the current number, but at that point of time, Telangana used to have 5 e-market, Uttar Pradesh 5, Gujarat 3, Haryana 2, Himachal Pradesh 2, Jharkhand 2, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan 1 each. Now, access to e-Mandi is good in the sense that there is one study that we are doing presently where we found that if you have access to, let's say, NCDX, your ability to discover price goes up. You are able to sell at a higher price compared to if you were to sell it at the. But it also has some downside that I'm going to discuss when I go to this e-market or e-Mandi section. Now, there is another study which is done by one of my co-authors. This is undertaken by NCFE, National Council for Financial Education. And what they found was there is lower awareness of financial product and ownership of financial products. For instance, 41% of the farmers are aware of the government subsidized debt scheme. Here also you will find it's highly biased towards the large farmers. The small farmers, they don't anyway qualify for this because they actually don't, first of all, they don't know about this product. And in terms of ownership, the ownership is also pitifully small. So for agricultural future, only 8.8% of the people are aware of the product available in the e-Mandi. And if I'm looking into the ownership of any financial products such as crop insurance and cattle insurance, it is only 1.67%. So with all this information, I started thinking that which one of the intervention will work. And again, why this is important, as I stated, that government is also working with some fixed pot of money, and therefore it becomes easier for government to understand which one of the intervention is going to give the maximum marginal benefit. But many times economics does not work or go hand in hand with politics. So therefore, even if you are reading newspaper right now, you will find that most of the states which are going into election, for instance, UP in Uttar Pradesh, Samajwadi Party has said that they are going to waive a farm loan. Even we have seen in the year 2017 when all these big states, Punjab, UP, Andhra Pradesh went for state election, the promise was they are going to waive off farm loan, as if that is going to help the farmers a lot. So, of course, because of this, we considered farm loan waivers as one of the intervention, although I knew from very beginning it's not going to help out the farmers in any way or others. Building more cold storage is the other intervention that I looked at. I looked at e-Mandi, food processing unit, and for the UNESCAP project, we looked at irrigation facilities. So these numbers are for the state of Rajasthan, and what I found was there is one-time benefit. Let's say in the year 2017, the government of Rajasthan, they go for farm loan waiver, and in that year, the one-time benefit to the small and marginal farmers, it comes to 8117 crores, okay? Now, without getting lost in all these numbers, smaller numbers, let me give you the main research finding. So what we also found that, let's say this year, this loan waivers are typically carried out by the public sector banks. So let's say that this year, State Bank of India is or has decided to give farm loan waiver to, let's say, 5 districts in UP, okay? And because we are dealing with the government, what the bank managers were telling us, although the government promised that this loan waiver money will be returned to the bank, and this is something the ownership lies with the government, but if the data from the state of Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, and other areas, I think also Rajasthan, which suggests that typically the year after the loan waiver is administered, let's say in 2017, you have loan waiver. Next year, government promises the bank to give back the entire money, but in fact, they end up paying around 3/4 of the money. So it goes as loss in the account of the bank. And because of that, bank in the subsequent years of loan waivers also reduce whatever loan that was mandatory for agricultural sector. And because of that reduction in loan, which eventually happens after the farm loan waivers, the banks, the small farmers, they are the ones who do not get loan at all. So this is how the distribution looked like. You can see that for the state of Rajasthan, post bailout, if I'm looking into the formal credit per household, for the small and marginal category of farmers, it has actually gone down. Only for the semi-medium, medium, and the large farmers, it is going up. Okay. So in a way, we are not doing any justice to this 86% of the large farming family who are living hand to mouth for their daily existence. So all this thing about, yes? You have a question? Okay, so all this talk by the political neta that farm loan waiver is actually going to be bringing a big change to the life of those farmers is actually not supported by data, okay? So this is how we did the cost-benefit analysis, and this BCR stands for benefit to cost ratio. In fact, what came out from our study is benefit to cost ratio is less than 1, which imply that if government is spending, let's say, $1, the benefit is 0.81 cent. Or so it is less. So government is actually incurring budget deficit by spending $1 money on account of farm loan waiver. And I'm going to talk about that. What is the forward outcome of that? Because once you are actually spending money on farm loan waivers, you are actually taking away money from other departments. For instance, Department of Power, Irrigation, Water Resources, and there is another study which some senior economists from ICRIER, they are doing. They have shown that if you are giving farm loan waiver, you are actually doing it at the behest of taking away loan from or money from which are allocated for education, health, and power and other infrastructure project. So in a way, it's doing actually harm to the society rather than doing any good to the society. Okay. Building more cold storage. What about this? In fact, what we found, this is going to give you the maximum benefit. And right now, when I advised government of China, something what we said that it is quite important for the farmers to get access to cold storage units so that they can actually start growing high valued added crop items. Again, study finds that small and marginal farmers are likely to gain from shifting to traditional crop to high value crops. The likelihood of a farmer being poor is going to be 3 to 7% less if he or she were to grow these high valued items. And according to the estimate prepared by Indian Council of Agricultural Research, around 18% of the country's food and vegetables get wasted annually because of lack of cold storage facility. For the milk, it is as high as 40%. And so when I did this analysis for the government of Rajasthan and AP, I actually took a conservative estimate of 13%. And these are the data that we looked at because when you do a cost benefit analysis, typically you have to do it under 3 different scenarios because you are actually going forward in terms of you are extrapolating the data in terms of how much you think the output is going to grow and what is the discounting factor, because you are going to estimate all this thing at the present day's prices. So typically you go with 3 types of discount, 3, 4, and 5%. That's what we did. And what we found is, this is just an example, the current total storage requirement for storing milk, fruits, and vegetables for the government of Rajasthan, we found it was 74,889 million metric ton. So 90% of the storage requirement already exists within the states, and to fill this gap, so that the cost part, you need another additional investment of 1883 crore. And we did this analysis for 9 years. And the assumption was the value of crop output is going to grow at 20% per year. With that assumption and with this discounting, we did this thing for 3 rate of discount, 3, 5, and 8%. We found in this case, because in the context of loan waiver, we were getting less than 1. But for the cold storage, we are getting benefit to cost ratio is 15:9, depending upon which rate of discount you take. So ideally, it makes sense not to go for farm loan waiver, but to build more cold storage units across states. And that is going to help the farmers. Then come the e-market. When the government of India, in this case, the central government, they were planning to, they are talking about e-market. The idea is to double farm income, because there is a government document which says that they wanted, when BJP government came to power, one of the election manifesto was they want to double farm income by the year 2022 as we speak. Unfortunately, we have a long way to go. But at that point of time, the idea was e-market is going to help the farmers directly participate with the potential buyer, because what is happening in traditional farming, you have the RTs or the middleman who are taking away the profit for the reason I just now stated, because the small farmers, they have to depend on them for getting credit. They have to depend on them to take their produce to the market. And because of this, most part of their profit, are getting channeled, or they go to the this RTS. So the government thought process was, if somehow we can bring in more e-market. So all you need is a computer and some way you understand how this e-market is working. Only then maybe the farmers are going to get benefited. And there are again some studies. These are the studies that I looked into while doing some literature review for the work that I did for these two government, which found that in Karnataka between 2007 and 2015, there was 128% increase in average price in e-market compared to 88%. So it's like a counterfactual experiment. If you were to trade in e-market, your benefit is 128%, and in comparison to 88% if you were to trade in non-e-market. And also what was found is coffee traded through electronic tendering fetched almost 4% higher price than what was determined through physical auction in the state of Karnataka. These are some of the studies which were undertaken and which I happened to stumble upon while doing my work. This is again for the Rajasthan, but the challenges are, first of all, not too many people are aware how this e-market works. Also, even if they're aware, and this is the reason why you see lots of noise, even as recent as this farmers' protest during recent times, because there is no competition policy. For instance, if I'm showing you when you are dealing in e-market, basically you are showing a picture of some product. Even if you, let's say, go to Big Bazaar or Reliance retail store, if I'm talking about rice, there can be so many different variety of rice. It starts with, let's say, 30 rupees per kilo. It can go as high as 120 rupees per kilo, depending upon the type of rice you're buying. Now, let's say I'm a small farmer sitting in some odd villages in Karnataka. I really post some nice looking picture, not for myself, but for my agricultural product I'm growing. And some potential buyer who is sitting in, let's say, in Calcutta, he found that to be very enticing and they enter into a deal. The question is, what if the seller, what he promises to be the quality is not the quality which the buyer gets when the deal gets completed? So there are lots of issues like this because there is no proper competition policy, or for that matter, if I were to go to the court, which court I go to if I come across this type of event. So these are the things that one has to think over. For e-market, the cost-benefit analysis is the highest. Again, because we have a small sample to do this, and as you know that anything that you do for the first time, again, Econ 101, in the marginal concept is anything which is introduced for the first time is going to give you the maximum benefit, coming from that microecon 101 principle. So this is why we tend to get so high BCR, benefit cost ratio for e-market. Okay, so based on our results and on our research finding, what we recommended is firm loan waiver does not make much economic sense. So in spite of our recommendation, what some of the principal secretaries were telling me that we all know about this, but the thing is our job is to tell it to the politicians, but many times politics trumps economics. Therefore, in spite of all this recommendation, all these studies, all these things, small farmers will continue, unfortunately, to remain small. E-market need to be scaled up. Adequate infrastructure for grading and sorting. This is something which I found is missing. As I said, that there can be a variety of product quality within a particular crop that you're considering. So there should be ability to grade and sort this product, which you are planning to sell or through e-market. Another option is you ensure the brokerage house, like NCDX or others, they will ensure the quality, so that everything happens in a transparent fashion. And there is also a need to form this, what we call FPOs, Farmers Producer Organization. So typically what happens is I work for this Mahindra University. So now Mahindra Tractors, they have some collaboration with Coromandel Investment and Finance Company, Coromandel International, where basically they are leasing out tractors to the FPOs. So if I'm a small farmer and if I'm, let's say, 15 of us, all of us can actually pull out our resources, in terms of money, in terms of land. And when you are, let's say, going for mechanization, you don't need access to tractor almost every day. The day I need, I just pull out that thing. So it is much more cost effective in terms of productivity, is also much more meaningful in that way. So that things have started happening. And the good thing about this recent budget is the government is also reduced that some of the income which are getting generated from the FPO type activities from, I think it got reduced from earlier 18% to 15%. So this is, I mentioned earlier, farm loan waiver does not make any sense at all, because recent studies which is undertaken at ICRIER is showing that the money which are allocated for farm loan waivers are actually taken from other sectors. For instance, health, power, infrastructure, and education. Economic rationale. This, as an economist, I keep on telling all people, all politicians, in whatever little way I can. Economic rationale should be given more importance over politics. Agricultural Produce Dispute Act and competition policy is something that the central government need to bring at this point of time for the reason I stated in the context of e-market. So these are a few of the reference. The first is in Economic and Political Weekly, which got published in 2018. A Copenhagen Consensus working paper for the government of Rajasthan. Then I have my own book where we have also stated some of the problem with the farming. It is published by Sage Publication, The Indian Economy, a Macroeconomic. And most of the other stuff that I write on various editorials or other places, I post it over at my website, which is www.nilanjanbanik.in. I also have my Twitter handle. So if you want to go and search for more of this, all of them are available over at the web. So with this, I'm going to stop, and I'm happy to entertain any question if you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. So we have shared a feedback form in the chat box. I request everyone to fill it. So we have some questions from our audience.
Yeah, please.
The first question is, why do we have a shock impact gap still existing in the agriculture sector in India? It has been observed that there are long time lags involved in response to the policies.
Long term, I would say actually the governments are not listening to the economists, because we keep on saying that farm loan waivers does not make sense, and yet you see the farm loan waiver being portrayed in various election manifesto whenever any particular state go for election. The case in point, as recent as right now, as we are debating and discussing about this in the state of Punjab, even the Aam Aadmi Party has stated that they are going to look at this farm loan waiver. The ruling Congress Party, they are saying that they are going to look, even BJP is saying that they are going to talk about this farm loan waiver. So I hope that people actually talk and listen and discuss about the plight of small and marginal farmers, because what is happening at this point of time, the people who are talking and debating and protesting are nothing to do with the small and marginal farmers. They are the big farmers and the middlemen who are actually exploiting the small and marginal farmers.
So our next question is, can you please separate farm sector reforms from politics?
Yes, that's what I did, right? Because if you look into the farm sector reforms, one is, of course, e-market, e-mandis, financial literacy. These are all the reforms. These are all, even the farm bill, it was a step towards reform, where basically it was argued that the government is, you as a farmer, you can actually start selling not at government designated mandis, but any other mandis, where you can get access to market, because as we have seen that there is so less amount of availability of market. So what government was proposing, unfortunately, that they have taken back that law. But when it was introduced, the farm law, they were proposing that there will be many such market where the farmers can go and trade their produce, So that was a good thing. So that unfortunately, that reform did not happen.
Sir, does the government propagate these reforms to their interests?
No, so the government propagates. So if you see what was happening because of MSP, first of all, you see that there is a tendency for all the states to grow this rice and wheat type of crops, which are highly water intensive crops. So the water table, if you go to Punjab or other northern states, it is going down over and over again, over every year. Now, why that is happening? Because the government has stated that, okay, we are going to procure from you at the minimum support price. Now, for the first time, the government wanted to repeal this act, saying that, okay, we are going to take it from MSP, but let other also get the opportunity. But that thing was again taken back. So as you have seen through my presentation, for the small farmers, it is necessary that you build more rural infrastructure, be it irrigation, be it why don't we also allow private sector participation in the form of, let's say, where there is no electricity? Why don't we, now solar power is a big thing. Why can't the government start helping out the private parties to come and help the farmers? Be it satellite imaging, be it solar farming, be it but everything is, again, this thing that we are seeing that the government is growing a certain variety of, or the farmers are growing a certain variety of crop, has to do with the fact that of MSP. So my argument is the government should go away from this business of procurement and distribution. So the government will actually save money, a lot of money, which they can use for other productive activities. So that was the idea with which they brought in this reform. Unfortunately, they could not sustain it.
Sir, we have one of the offline participants in our seminar room. He has one question for you.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
I have a question. Is the concept of e-mandi specific to Rajasthan, or is such a pattern observed nationwide as well?
No, so I gave you the data, right? So it is across nations they have started. It depends upon the how much the state government is taking initiative. So the data which I've shared with you is for the year 2018. And now there are more such e-mandis. I don't have the exact numbers, how many e-mandis are there in various states. You can check it out in Google, you should be able, or the Ministry of Agriculture website. Yeah.
So how effective are e-mandis?
How what?
How effective are e-mandis?
E-mandis are very effective. For the studies which I've again stated, it shows that there is element of price discovery to the extent of 4 to 5%. So let's say you are selling at normal auction for 400 rupees. If you are doing it through e-mandi, you are going to get around 105 rupees. So in that way, it's quite effective.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So we also have another question of one of our professors who's here in the seminar room.
Okay.
Dr. Subhajit Lahiri Chakravarti asks, you talked about finance problem in agriculture. How several microfinance institutions are doing a good job in certain states in providing credit to small farmers. Do you see this as an effective option to be encouraged in other states too? That is the question that Dr. Lahiri poses.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. In fact, what we found, although I've not done much study on microfinance, but what I found initially, this microfinance activities are more predominant in southern states, be it Andhra Pradesh, be it Tamil Nadu, be it Karnataka. But I don't find that much prevalence of this microfinance activities, be it in northeastern part of India or northern part of India. I have not looked into why is that it is not so effective. Maybe that is a separate research question altogether.
Thank you, sir. I hope this solves Dr. Lahiri's question. We also have another question by Ashwin Kalra, who is seated in the seminar room. Ashwin, could you please come up to the dais?
Hello, sir. Good afternoon, sir. So I have a question. The government is going detail in many areas, but I feel India should also make stride toward detailed understanding simultaneously. What is India doing in this regard, considering the marginal and lower income group, and specifically in terms of digital agriculture?
Yeah. So what's the question?
So the question is like that India is moving towards digitalization, and the conditions as we are seeing that presently that e-restaurants are opening, should India go towards online teaching of these agriculture things, that will it be helpful to increase the production and agriculture production, and to increase the awareness among the agriculture disease and all such things?
Yeah, so that's a comment you're making which I'm agreeing. Yes.
Okay,
but the question is, how do we do that? Which is,
yes,
you have to go for lots of you have to train the farmers, right? If I were to, let's say, participate in the e-market, I need to know how the e-market works. If I want to participate in NCDX, I need to know how NCDX is working, So you have to empower the farmers in terms of those literacy programs before they can start getting benefit from this.
Yes, I have one more question. We are seeing that several crops are comes under the MSP schemes, but as we see that the several vegetables and fruits are not coming under the MSP scheme, is it possible to bring such vegetables and fruit under the MSP schemes? Because we see that there's such a high speculation in the rates of onions and potato and tomatoes are impacting the economy a lot. So that MSP on such items on the daily basis can be possible or not?
See, government is trying to get out of MSP. Now you're asking to bring more crops under MSP. So if government is listening to our conversation, you will be asked to leave the room. So I don't think MSP is a good idea. In fact, I would go to the extent saying that government should get out of MSP and let the market, because otherwise what is going to happen, as I said, it's they are using the water table, most of the MSP related crops. So it is better to get out of MSP.
So, but if we presently see the conditions of Indian farmers, they are literally very poor, and due to one or other reasons, the conditions are quite brutal.
So let me cut you short. It has nothing to do with MSP. It is to do with lack of storage facilities that we are saying. That what we said is going to be useful for the farmers.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Speak up, please.
Thank you, sir, for your presence and wise words that help magnify our cause in the best possible way. Now, I would request Dr. N.N. Singh, convener of our Economic Society, Aryabhat College, for concluding the session with a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr.
Banik.
Banik,
Yeah.
for such a enlightening, in a sense, and so much of able to understand about Indian economy, especially this agriculture sector, in the context of how Indian farmers remain poor. But I hope that you start from the idea of the methodologies, and also it talks about all various aspects, like why, in the context of where are the farmers trying to define the concept. Most of the studies basically cover only the farmers that actually engaging only in the productive activities of the plants, but you basically cover all those allied activities, and bringing the statistics in terms of, say, how many people are there in the agricultural sector and agriculture and allied sectors, and giving the idea very, very well, very clear and elaborate about that why the Indian farmers poor, that the reasons that it's access to land, farm equipment, finance, cold storage, transport, market, e-mandis, information finances. And you also basically give very good ideas about recommendations and interventions that the governments could do. So in this could do in terms of the, instead of going through the loan waivers, which has comes up, may not be very frequently but from time to time, and cold storage, building of more cold storage, building of mandis, food processing, irrigation facilities. All these are very, very, it will be, will go a long way for the students and also for all the participants, that at least some aspect of the Indian agriculture will be understood, not only understood, it will be helping the students to engage in their research work in the future. By saying this, I am, all of the mind over the matter, the economic society is very, very honored, and the economics department is also honored that Sir agreed and present and make a very so much of the enlightening and comprehensive talk. And I would like to thank you. I also would like to thank our principal, sir. He was readily agreed because this is an important, very, very important part of our economic society's 3 days festival. We also have a series of other speakers will be coming up in the 2 days after evening as well as tomorrow. And I would like to thank my senior colleague Deepika Goel ma'am, she has been very, very active and cooperating with the students. My other senior colleagues and the colleagues of the economics department, which has been always been very cooperating. I also would like to thank all of the organizing or the executive members of economic society, the mind over the matter. Without their constant work, working over a day and a night, that cannot be realized, all these activities. And the rest of the students who are participating, not only from the economics department, from across different departments, who are really interested to know about what is basically why. Basically, it's just a very big question in each of the mind when we are going out, even within the Delhi itself, or if we move out, certainly we have seen so many poor peoples, and agriculture sector, certainly we have been keep on saying that help us to clarify, very well. I hope that there are still some few questions relating to the fertilizer policies which are coming up recently. All these things, I think, so also in the next time, basically, will be hoping like comprehensive economic agriculture policies, including the fertilizer policies and other aspects. I think this also certainly will be an important part of the component. By saying this, I hand over to the mind over matter. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mani. Thank you, Nilanjan, for this very, very enlightening session today. And as our students have already mentioned that we have started the sessions in an offline mode now. So we are really looking forward to have you physically in the college one day for some other talk. And just for an information, your Sage publication text, the book, we've just ordered some few more copies in the library just 2 days back. Not because you were coming here, but it's a good book, and we would want our students to read and get enlightened more with it.
And
thank you so much.
Deepika, so I guess you have recorded this.
Yes, we have.
So if you may share the link.
Yeah, I will do that. I'll surely do that.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much, sir.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, the audience. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.